Is the book study of the book The Vortex by Abraham Hicks, and we are currently on page 69. When does fixing problems simply increase problems? All right. Excited. It's always so much fun to get into this book because there's so much in it. You know, I find every sentence of this book has so much depth in it. All right, so Jerry says, I guess my tendency in years gone by was to try to fix the problems. I believed that if I could think about them enough, I could get them fixed. But then most of the problems just increased. Abraham says the only way to solve a problem is to look towards the solution. And when you're looking in the direction of the solution, you always feel an improvement in your emotions. Looking back at the problem always feels worse because it makes the problem bigger. Here's why. Let's talk about this. It's because one thought will attract another thought like it. That's law of attraction. So let's say you have a problem. Let's pick a problem. My roof is leaking. There's a leak in my roof. All right, that's the problem. If you stay long enough focusing on this problem, it's going to attract other problems, other thoughts like it. So because you're focused on a problem, you will see other problems. Why isn't the garbage on the curb? It should be on the curb tonight. Why did my son or my daughter not clean the room? Why did I get passed up for the raise that I was supposed to get? So you start with one problem, and then because you are on the frequency of a problem, all other problems in your life come to the forefront at that point in time. So now you don't just have that one problem, you have all of these problems, and the weight of those problems then takes you further down the emotional scale. So one problem will create, and like I gave you these big examples, but there can be small examples. For example, start again with something small. Let's start with something small instead of the leaky roof. Let's say, there's a sock on the ground. Why is there a sock on the floor? Doesn't my child know better than to throw their clothes around? Now that problem then says, now it's a train of thought is going to start. It's not the first time he's done that or she's done that. They've done that before. In fact, you know what? They never clean up after themselves. Shouldn't they be clean? And now you get on to this rant of thinking about all the problems that you've ever had with this child. And then the child appears and you blow up. You blow up on a sock, but you're not really blowing up on the sock. You're blowing up on all the things that have ever happened with this child before. And the child's like, it's only a sock. What's wrong with you? Because the child just sees the sock on the ground. But whereas you are going back to everything that has ever gone wrong. And this is exactly what happens, whether it's with child and a parent or spouses or any other relationship. Whether it's an employer and an employee. Employers, like I've told you 10,000 times to do this, right? Employer notices one small mistake and then starts thinking about all the mistakes that employee has ever made. And then from there progresses to thinking about all other employees and all the mistakes they have made. And now this poor person comes in front of the employer who has never made a mistake, and the employer blows up, explodes. And this person's thinking, What did I do? Well, first of all, you matched that vibration. Something in your life brought you to that same vibration. Otherwise, that would not have happened. But the point is, every thought attracts another thought exactly like it. This is why when you start focusing on the problem, the solution cannot come, because the solution is a totally different vibration from the problem. Problems are low on the emotional scale, solutions are high on the emotional scale. So if you keep thinking about the problem, you will not get to the solution. The best example that is really makes sense to me is that when I used to go as a child to write an exam, I didn't sit there and keep reading the question all the time. If I did that, then I would never get the exam done, right? When you go to write an exam, all children learn, read the question and then start answering it. Focus on the solution, not the question. If you keep focusing on the question and you don't write anything, you just keep reading the question over and over again, you're going to fail. The answer will not come. And that's what we need to understand. The frequency of a problem is different from the frequency of a solution. I've heard Abraham say these words, and I absolutely love these words, is that the difference between recovery, they were talking to a woman who was sick, and they said to her, the difference between recovery and not is hope. You can come to the same problem from a point of view of hope, and you can come to the same problem from the point of view of despair. Which attitude you adopt is going to lead you to the next thing that will happen. So always come to life. Anything that life brings you, come to it from any perspective that is above the worry line. As long as you're above the worry line, you're doing fine. Okay, so then Abraham says, it is that old flawed premise again, if I push hard enough against what I do not want, it will go away. When what really happens is that the more you push against it, the bigger it becomes, and the more often it manifests in your experience. And this is the same thing that happens when people get together and push against something that they don't want. The problem just becomes bigger, because the problem will defend itself as well, right? If you're looking at a collection of people, hello, aren't you such a cutie? Oh wow, full house. Okay, so it's helpful to remember that every subject is really two subjects, what is wanted and the absence of what is wanted. And the best way that I understood this from Abraham was the analogy of a stick. Abraham said every subject is like a stick with that which is wanted and that which is not. Every subject is a stick with two ends. And whichever end you spend more time on, that's the end that will manifest. So if you keep thinking, I don't have money, then you will not have more money. And if you keep thinking that money will come, then money will come. It's your attitude. It's the same subject. So the thing that happens, this is why we teach mindfulness, is that people pick up the subject of money and they are not aware whether they're on this end of the stick or this end of the stick. That's the problem. They think that if they are thinking about their money problems, then they are on the solution side of the thinking process. But often they're not. They are on the subject of money, but they're addressing the subject from this side, whereas they need to address the subject from this side, from the having of it rather than the not having of it. That's, if you grasp that difference, you're off to the races. Because that really is the thing that makes the most difference. And because we go off on autopilot, we don't know where we are on that subject. We don't know which end of the stick we are focusing from. All right. So then that's what Abraham is saying. It is helpful to remember that every subject is really two subjects: what is wanted and the absence of what is wanted. The best way to identify which side of the equation you are focused upon is by paying attention to how you are feeling. How you're feeling will tell you where your focus is. So, on the subject of money, when you pick up the subject, you pick up the stick and you're thinking about the stick, are you feeling bad? If you're feeling bad, that means you're focusing on the negative side of things. If you're feeling peaceful, that means you're focusing the right way. So what should you do if you are feeling negative? You need to change your self-talk. Oh, I'm not feeling good about this subject that I'm focused on. What can I say to myself to feel better about it? And the things that you can say to yourself that feel better are, it's okay, it's going to be fine, money will come. I don't have to think about this bill. I don't have to pay this bill today. In between my paying the bill and today, something will happen. I'm going to give this over to Source. The universe will look after it, right? And now, even though your reality hasn't changed, but you feel better. And when you feel better, that is the first step towards reality actually changing. And when we remind ourselves of that, that's all we need. Nothing has to change just now. The only thing that has to change is inside me. When that changes, then the stuff on the outside will also change. It's just a matter of time. Awesome. So we are now on page 70, and Jerry's question is, love is a predominant word in our culture. How do you see humankind in general in relation to the word love? Abraham says that the word love means being in alignment with Source, being in alignment with the Source inside you, your inner being, meaning looking at things outside of yourself as well as yourself through the eyes of Source. Seeing everything through the eyes of Source, that is what it means to love. Think about it. I'm going to give you an example. I don't know if you've ever had a friend like this, or maybe a brother or a sister or someone that you know. They get involved with someone, and they are totally what we call head over heels in love with this person. And then you meet this person and you say, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, what do you see here? And then you start making a long list of reasons why your sibling should not be in love with this person. And what happens? It becomes a fight. Because you say, these are all the reasons. I don't think you should be in love with this person. And your sibling says, well, guess what? I don't care. I don't care what you think, because I don't see what you see. I see only perfection. This is the right person for me. That's all I see. And much as you try to convince them, they don't listen. Because love does not see any flaw. Love does not see any flaw. That's what it means to be in love. Love does not see any flaw. Yesterday I was in a coaching session with a mother, who loves her daughter. But every time she talks about her daughter, she finds a flaw. Every single time. And this is leading to major issues between the two of them. So, what I want to explain to her is, love sees no flaw. If you love, then you should not. And so what she says is, but I absolutely love my daughter. I would do anything for her. Yes, but you're only looking at her flaws. Looking at someone's flaws means an absence of love. That is not love. And this is what predominantly erodes any relationship, whether it is between parents and children, whether it is between spouses. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship it is that your desire is not lined up with your thinking. You desire one thing, but you think about a different thing. I desire love, but I'm focused on all the problems. You've got to let go focusing on the problems to let love return, because love will automatically return if you don't focus on the problems. And that's not usually how people look at it. People say, oh, well, you must change in order for me to be able to love you. But that's not how it works. You stop focusing on the flaws, love automatically returns. Because love is your natural state. Love is your natural state. So you will always go down. It's like a spring. If you depress a spring at both ends and then let it go, it returns to its natural state. Right? It just goes back to what it really is. And that's how our emotions work. If we don't depress them by noticing things that we don't like, then we go back up the emotional scale. It's like a spring. Okay. So Abraham says, when you are in complete alignment with the vibration of the source inside you, there is no active resistance within you. So this is the first, after the question, after Jerry's question, the first paragraph, third line, there is no active vibration of resistance within you. And then they gave an example. For example, if a parent were focused upon the absolute well-being of his child, that parent would be in complete harmony with the way source within him views the subject of his child, and therefore there would be no resistant vibration present, and the parent would feel love. But if a parent is focused upon what he considers to be the bad behavior of the child, or if the parent is worrying about something unwanted happening to the child, those thoughts are completely disharmonious with the way the source within him views the subject of his child, and therefore there is resistance present within the parent's vibration, and he would feel anger or worry. That's why I say to you that worry and love are not the same thing. Because I remember my mother used to say to me, I love you, therefore I worry about you. And love is not the same thing as worry. If you love someone, there should be no worry of any type for their safety, or whether it is their behavior or their safety, there should be no worry. There's a video on my YouTube channel. I think it's called Love is a One-Way Street. Love is a one-way street. It's not a two-way street. This is a very big mistake that people make, in the sense that they think that love is about giving and receiving. Love is not about giving and receiving. Love is about giving, 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 and not expecting anything in return, but being happily surprised when there is. Love is you've got to give 100% regardless of whether the other person is giving anything. That's love. But when you say, I will not give you love because I'm not getting any from you, that's not love. That's conditionality. That's a transaction. Love is not a transaction. Listen again. Love is not a transaction. It's not about giving and taking. Love is a one-way street. You just give. Just give. Like Source. Source just gives. When people are bad on earth and there are wars going on, Source does not turn off the sun and say, you guys, you are not loving each other. I'm just going to turn the sun off. Source continues to give us everything, never withholds anything from us. Never withholds. If it was a vengeful God up in the sky, like, I was taught when I was a child, that God gets angry. If it was a vengeful God, then those bad ones, the bad ones, they would get hit with lightning every time. That's it, zap them. Zap them every time. You got hit with lightning, you must be one of the bad ones. God doesn't do that. The universe does not do that. The universe keeps providing and providing and providing. That is why well-being always prevails. Because Source never withholds anything, regardless of what mankind on planet Earth or on, any other planet is doing. The universe never withholds anything from us. That's love. But parents do it all the time. Parents withhold things all the time. Parents withhold things. Parents say, you haven't been good, you don't get any dessert. You haven't been good, no ice cream for you. You haven't been good, you can't watch TV. You haven't done what I asked you to do. You won't have this. This is why when in my household, there are only 2 rules for my children. Eat and sleep. That's it. Nothing is ever withheld. Even when they were tiny, I never withheld candy or pop. Never. Because the more you withhold it, then it's like they want it more. But if you let them have as much as they want, they become self-regulating. Let them regulate. They know. They have guidance. They'll know when to stop. And if they have a craving, must be because their body is asking for it. Let it be. So, people come into my house and they used to tell me that my children were spoiled because I wasn't withholding anything. But now they tell me Stella is spoiled because Stella gets treats for nothing. Treats are not withheld. Treats are given to Stella because I love her, not because she has to do something to please me. She does not need to do anything. She will just get a treat regardless. Right? So, when we withhold things from people because we want them to prove their deservability, you don't deserve my love. Why should I hug you and kiss you? Now you're not being like Source. You're not being like Source, because Source will never withhold anything at all. And that's how you know whether you are actually demonstrating love or not. I see a comment on Facebook, guys. Hang on one second. Mary is saying, sometimes I say out loud, this is a good challenge for me. Watch how successful I will be. Take care of you and have a happy day. Mary, big hug. Hi, Rochelle. Good to see you. Yes, never withhold love. So when we withhold love, you know what happens? It starts a perpetual cycle. You withdraw love, and then the other person says, because everyone has these antennas. So you withdraw love, then the other person feels that withdrawal of love, and then they say, I'm going to withdraw love. And then they withdraw love, and your antenna catches it, and you say, what? You are the one who was inappropriate. That's why I withdrew love, and now you're showing me an attitude. So then you withdraw love even more. And then they feel your withdrawal, and they say, God, doesn't she get it? And they withdraw even more. And then you see that withdrawal, and you say, what? And you withdraw even more. Next thing you know, everything's fallen apart. But this is standard. This is how it happens. My son just got married, and not my son, my son is probably a couple of years away, but my son just got married, and that girl, she doesn't even respect me. Immediate withdrawal of love. Now this girl who is new in the family is like, your mother really doesn't like me. Withdrawal of love. See, I told you she doesn't respect me. See, I told you she doesn't like me. Right? Give me a relationship and I'll show you how it works. Every relationship works like this. Because people withdraw love and they don't know that that's what they're doing. They're being conditional. Happens to a lot of kids I know. I know all the boys, my son's age, he's 18. All the boys, you were smoking, so I no longer love you. You didn't come home on time. Why do you have a cell phone? I pay for your cell phone. You can't call me? Immediate withdrawal of love. You failed. I'm taking away your internet rights. Right? How is that going to help? Now the child feels not loved. So the child reacts even more. It's a never-ending cycle if you do things that way. But if you tell yourself that love is a one-way street, it's just one way. It's just one way. I'm just going to give. And that's it. You're not looking for a return. That's perfect. That's love. Go ahead, Lakshmi. Go ahead.
If I see this happening between two people, is there anything I can do to help or change the situation, or I just
let them figure it out? And why would you want to make it your problem? But here's what you can do. If the two people concerned, if one of them comes to you, let's say you see something happen between two people, and then one of them's gone and the other one's still in the room with you. And this one says to you, see what I mean? See, I tell you, this person always like this. Now you have an opportunity. Now you have an opportunity to say, you know what, it's not worth it for you to be so upset about it. Your upsetness is not going to change them. You only control yourself. You don't control other people. Just let it go. Let it go. What's the worst that can happen? They won't change, but at least you can be fine. Don't link your well-being to the other person's behavior. So you can, you see, the thing that happens is when people are in that situation, they are not capable of doing the self-talk, and especially if they are not familiar with Abraham's teachings, They are not capable of doing self-talk. The primary thing that I have learned from Abraham and have become really good at teaching and doing is regulation of self-talk. So, but when someone is in the middle of negative momentum, they don't have the capability. Even I can say for myself that if I go down the emotional scale, at that point in time, I am not going to be able to think those thoughts because your negative momentum has you in its grip. So what you're helping your friend do, because they at that point in time can't do the self-talk, you are doing it for them. Okay? You are saying things to them to make them feel better. It's the same thing that my parents used to do for me. If I fell and scraped my knee, my mother would put me in her lap, hold me tight, and tell me it's going to be all right. Right? So that made it all right. That's all you have to do for your friend. You have to not judge your friend, number one. The thing that happens, first of all, is when you are witness to something happening, if you become judgmental and you take sides. If you're taking sides, you're no longer in a place of love yourself. So don't take sides, right? You have to stay stable at a place of love. That's number one. And then you help soothe this person and make them feel better. Make them feel better. That's all. As a friend, that's the only thing you can do, is to help them feel a little better. When they feel a little better, they're going to have, their perspective is going to change. And when their perspective changes, the way they look at the other person will change, even just an iota. And that's good enough. It's not our job to drag people up the emotional scale. We can't do that. Everyone has to do their own thing. But that's how you can feel of value. You just do your best. If they come, awesome. If they are in the midst of so much momentum that they can't come, bless them and let them go. And say to yourself, they'll come up the emotional scale when they're ready. And you know, the words that our forefathers, our parents used to say, time is the healer. Why? Because with time, momentum subsides. That's why time is the healer. So, if something happens between people, you want it to be fixed, and you feel helpless because you can't help either one of them, you just say time is the healer and you move on, because it's not your battle. Don't get involved.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good question. This is how people, this is how things actually go wrong. I was coaching someone a couple of weeks ago actually, and she told me of a situation where she took what someone told her. Someone told her something about another friend. She heard this and she thought, well, that person should know. So she took this piece of information and went to the other friend and said, and because that other person hadn't shared that information with anyone else, they knew that this person has told this person. So now it's blown up. And it's like, why would you? How could you betray my trust? Right? So what are you doing? You're just getting in the middle. If she had just left these two of her friends alone, let them figure it out, it would actually have been way better than now her participation and wanting to fix it for them made it worse. You know why? Because now she's adding to the problem, because she thinks they are helpless to help them. They can't help themselves. I should help them because they can't help themselves. When you think that someone is helpless, you contribute towards their helplessness. Right? And so, I mean, this is a discussion that can go on forever. You know, do you help someone because they can help themselves? Right? I mean, that old proverb analogy, don't give a man a fish, give him a fishing rod. Yes, but then what if he doesn't use it? You don't control that. Then you're going to go home and you're going to think, I shouldn't have I spent money that I needed and I bought that person a fishing rod because I thought it's better than giving him a fish. If I had just given him a fish, that would be $1, but I spent $10 buying a fishing rod. You know, like, so again, if you had just left it alone and thought that person will figure it out. If they think they need a fishing rod, they'll find a way to get a fishing rod. Right? I mean, people come to me. Sometimes this used to, oh my God, I used to get so suckered in, I will tell you. And then I taught myself. When I first started charging for coaching, so initially people would come to me and it was just something that I was doing because I loved what I was learning and I was just helping people. And then it was taking so much time that I started charging for it. In the beginning, when I started charging for coaching, people would come to me with a sob story and say, oh, I don't have the money to pay for coaching. And I would say, oh yeah, sure, you know, bleeding heart. But then I started realizing that those are the people who are not ready for learning. Because even though you put so much into it, they don't get anything out of it. Because I'm thinking that they're helpless, so I should help them. I'm not empowering them. I'm not empowering them. And so, yeah, it's a discussion that can go in many different directions, but let's keep going with Abraham's book here. Okay, so then Abraham says, this example I really enjoy. I enjoy this example because it's happened to me. My mother will scream, or my father as well would scream at us, really. You know, like you would think from the way they were screaming at you that they were like wild animals and, you know, they were going to attack you at any moment and suck the blood out of you. That's how they would talk. And then they would say they loved you. So the words didn't have any real meaning, because the vibration was not matching the word. And so here, right at the bottom of the page, Abraham is telling us that the biggest problem is that our words don't match the vibration that we are sending out. So here's what they're saying. They give the example, don't you know how much I love you? Mother is screaming in her worry and anger. From her place of misalignment. And so even though she's offering the word love, her vibration could not be more opposite. And then they continue saying, one of the most confusing things that children encounter as they begin to understand language is the dichotomy between the words their parents offer and the accompanying vibration. It is of such value to a child when a parent expresses with words what he is actually feeling, and of even more value when the parent works to be in alignment with the truest of his feelings, love, before he expresses anything at all towards his child. And so this is how manipulation starts. What is manipulation? This is the definition of manipulation. Words don't match vibration. So even though I'm saying, you know, why do we call someone a sleazy salesman? Because, or woman, because their words are not matching their vibration. We get that vibe. This person just wants to make a sale. They're really not interested in my well-being. Whereas the words that are coming out of that person's mouth are like, I am so sincere. You won't find a more honest person than me. And all the time you're thinking, yeah, but your vibration is telling me I can't trust you. Right? Hi, Yolanda. So good to see you. This is something challenging to me. I'm aware. How can I make it better? If I already withdrew love, how do I go back? Sweetheart, when you let go conditions, first of all, Yolanda, excellent question. When you let go conditions, you automatically return to love. Remember, I don't know if you were on the call when I gave the example of a spring. So if you look at law of attraction, the emotional scale as a spring, and your worry and the conditions that you think other people should be following, those conditions are like pressure that depress the spring, and it goes down, 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 down into the negative realm. But when you let go the conditions and you let go your desire for them to change, that pressure just goes away, and then the spring will just bounce right back up to a place of love. It's the analogy that Abraham uses of depressing a cork underwater. When you depress a cork underwater, you have to apply force to keep it there. You give up the force and the cork bobs back to the surface of the water. The force that we are applying to keep the cork depressed or to keep the spring depressed is the force that the energy that it takes to think all those negative thoughts. Should have, could have, didn't do, I don't like you because of this, and I'm just withdrawing my love from you because of all the history. It takes energy to go and think those thoughts. Right? Every thought, when you think a thought, you're generating energy. When you think negative thoughts, you're generating negative energy. That negative energy depresses your spring and takes you down the emotional scale. Stop thinking those thoughts, the negative energy goes away. And that's why the most important thing to understand is that this is why it is way better just to get off the subject. When you get off the subject, you're not going negative because you don't have the capability to go positive. You see? Sometimes we are at a place on a subject or a relationship where we don't have the capacity to be positive about it. The mother-in-law can't think of a single thing positive about that daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law can't think one single positive thing about the mother-in-law. So it would not be possible for them to start making long lists of positive aspects about each other. It is way easier for them just to get off the subject. Get off the subject. Don't think about each other. Because when you get off the subject, you're no longer depressing the spring. And if you're no longer depressing the spring, it will automatically go up. That's the key. That's why the easiest strategy that involves the least amount of work is to get off the subject. Get off the subject. And then, Abraham keeps repeating those words, get off the subject and then. Get off the subject and then. Right? It's the easiest strategy. All right. Let's go back here. Thank you for that question, Yolanda. Good question. So, when our words match our vibration, that's when we are being authentic. Right? We are being authentic. Our words match our vibration. So, let's keep moving on. So, next question is Jerry's question on page 71 is, why do people often continue to cling to relationships that bring them pain? Oh my God, this is such an important question because there's so much of this going on out there. Abraham says, often people believe that having a relationship, even if it is not a good feeling one, is better than having no relationship at all. And so they stay because it seems less painful to be angry than to be lonely, or to be continually aggravated than to be insecure. So they're just making a comparison of, do I want to feel this way or this way? Do I want to feel insecure or angry? Okay, anger is better than insecurity. Because anger is better than fear. Insecurity is fear. Right? So that's why, even though we as friends sometimes can see people who put up with situations that they shouldn't be putting up with, we think that they should leave, but they don't think that they should leave. Because their perception is that they will be worse off by leaving. And that's why they don't leave. Whatever reasoning they're giving to themselves in their heads, they may not be open about sharing that reasoning, but they have a reason that they know what that reason is, because of which they stay. All right. So then Jerry says, and what degree of discomfort or pain should a person reach before you would recommend seeking a separation from the negative relationship? And Abraham says, no one should put up with any kind of physical or verbal abuse. No one should put up with that. And so we would encourage a physical separation as quickly as possible. Why? Because when you have a physical separation, momentum can subside. That's why. But then don't go back without doing the work. If you don't find something to appreciate, then don't go back. Because you've got to change the way you're thinking. Otherwise, you're going to go back and recreate the whole thing all over again. And so, I don't know about you, but I've seen people who, over a period of a lifetime, keep breaking up and going back together. And, one of my aunts used to do that. She would have a big fight with her husband and she would come home. And then she would be home for a couple of weeks, and then he would come, and she would go back. And then 2 months later, she'd be back at my grandparents' house, and then she would go back again. And it was just like that for their entire married life. It was like that. But nothing was happening in between. Vibration was not changing in between. So that's why the problem just kept perpetuating over and over again. So what Abraham is saying is, at the bottom of the page, they're saying, just removing yourself from the current situation will not stop your feeling of abuse if you continue to think about it, resent it, and use it as your reason for leaving. And that's the problem. Like, if I think about my aunt, she would come home and she would cry and weep and say how horrible everything was. And then my grandparents would try and convince her that her life wasn't that bad and she should go back. And, it was never ending. But she would go back and she hadn't done anything to believe it. So it just happened over and over again. So Abraham says, you cannot continue to focus upon unpleasant thoughts without keeping the thoughts active within you, and therefore holding yourself out of alignment with the solutions and relationships that you really do desire. In short, you just cannot get to where you want to be by pointing at the evidence of that which is unwanted. It defies law. And then they say, well, sometimes people do the work, the vibrational shift, and then they no longer want to leave. But then what's wrong with that? And I've seen that situation happen as well. I've seen people doing the self-talk and reconciling with their relationship, and then their friends come and say, what? You decided to stay? What's wrong with you? You should leave. And then they bring the problem to the forefront again, and the whole thing starts all over again. So Abraham is saying, we are not suggesting that in all cases it is possible to certainly focus so positively that you cause personality or behavior changes in those who live with you, but we do know that nothing can come into your experience unless it is active in your vibration. So that's where we have to take ownership. There is no other way. You have to accept the fact that everything that happens to you is because of you. You cannot hand it over to anyone else. And a lot of times I have conversations with people who want who get onto this journey of law of attraction, and then they start worrying about the fact that their spouse is not on the journey. And they start worrying and they start saying things like, well, I want to create this abundance for both of us, but he's not on the same page, so it's not going to happen. You know, I'm creating it and he's eating it away. And I'm saying she because it really was she. So I'm actually thinking of a person that I coached. And my response is, but sweetheart, you should be able to create so much abundance that it should not matter to you what he does. Why are you focusing on him and his behavior? You just focus on your ability to allow abundance and then stop worrying. And this is what I have taught myself to do. Right? Because when my children ask me for something more, I say, okay, that just means I need to let in more. It doesn't mean, oh, you are horrible children because look at all the things that I do for you and you're still not satisfied. How dare you ask me for one more thing? Don't you see how hard I work? And, you know, I can go into that way of thinking. Or I can just say, okay, time to allow more abundance. Right? It's just how you look at things. So, nothing can come into our experience unless we allow it. And then Abraham is saying, many argue that unpleasant things would not be active in their vibration if other people had not behaved in a way that caused the activation. But the problem is, you attracted it. Because if that person hadn't shown you that behavior, somebody else would have. Because law of attraction is exact and it is consistent, and that is why we can always depend on the law of attraction, because it is so consistent. So it doesn't matter what is happening around us. We have the power to focus. And Abraham says, you have the power to focus and therefore attract despite the behavior of others in your environment. Despite the behavior of other people, you attract into your life based on your own vibration. So, and then they give this really good example here. If every time you see something unwanted, you merely move to a place where, for the moment, you do not see the unwanted behavior, in time you will have backed into an impossible corner of complete isolation. Just think about it. I don't like this house, so I'm going to move from here. So you move to another house. Then you don't like the neighbors. You don't like this. You don't like that. Like, where are you going to go? Abraham once said, you know, you're going to have to leave the city. First leave the house, then the street, then the city, to another city, then the country, and then planet Earth. Like, where are you going to go? Right? You're going to have to find a planet where no one lives so that no one can upset you. Like, is that what you want? So that's what they mean when they say that. You're going to corner yourself into complete isolation because your balance is so fragile that you have no control over your balance. Imagine that your balance was so fragile for walking that you couldn't walk. But we are not that fragile, right? We deal with gravity all the time. Every day we deal with gravity. And we do it intuitively. And that is exactly what law of attraction is like. We can use it intuitively because it never wavers. It is always the same. It is always consistent. And we will always get consistent results. Okay. So Abraham says, last paragraph on page 72, instead of physically removing yourself from the unpleasant relationship and instead of asking your partner to behave differently so that you could feel better by merely observing if you would ride each new rocket of desire that is born out of the conflicts, your physical vibrational patterns of thought would be such that the law of attraction will have to match you up with different experiences. So there is no excuse, really. There is no excuse because the work is up to us. And if we are getting manifestations that we don't want to get, it's because we haven't done the work that we should be doing. It's really as simple as that. It is very empowering to discover that your patterns of thought do not have to follow your current situation, and therefore your current situation on all subjects can change. Which is just, in this moment, I have control. Even despite the reality that is surrounding me, I can choose to think a different thought. It's not going to impact this reality, but I can get control over my future. The next moment in time, I have control over. And that's what it's all about. That brings us to the end of this section. And the next section, part 2, is mating and the law of attraction, the perfect mate, getting one, being one, and attracting one. I like that tagline. Getting one, being one, and attracting one. Okay, we will start that next Thursday. And so for now, if there are any questions, bring on the questions.
In the middle of the meeting, when you were talking about helping other people or groups of people, it made me think of a meme that was from Abraham Now, when they first started doing the podcast, and I shared it in the group while, in the middle of the meeting. It's really long.
Okay. In the group? You shared it in the group?
I shared it in the unicorn.
In the unicorn group? Okay. I'll go and take a look at that. Okay. So, any other questions? If you have a question, just jump in. No formality here. And I'll just check Facebook. Nothing on Facebook. Yes, Tumika. Bring Natasha. All right. Anyone on Zoom have a question? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and close the call.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I've been watching this little guy, and I said I didn't want any compensation, and then she felt it necessary to give me compensation, and my plan was to give it all back, but after the discussion today, I don't want her to feel like maybe I should just leave it how she wants it, and not give it back.
Well, the thing is, it's like a gift, right? It's her way of saying thank you.
It's fine. That.
Yeah.
Even though I think I know she needs it more than she is.
Okay, so that's what's going on inside you.
I don't need it. She needs it, but I don't want to overstep boundaries or say that she can't get it herself. Or she made it clear that she wanted to give it to me, so I let it be back. So maybe I should just continue to let it be and not give it back.
Well,
today's the last day.
Yeah, that's fine. Just keep it. Just keep it. If you really wanted to, you can say to her, I am more than happy to return this to you if it helps you. And just say that once. And if she does not take it, then let it be. Don't press on.
Okay.
Okay, don't press on, because pressing on will take you down the emotional scale. It will also take her down the emotional scale. But if she really needed it, she would take it. Yeah. Awesome. Good question. All right. Anyone else here have a question? Oh, Nuera is joining us now. Maybe she has a question. Hi, Nuera. Oh, she's still connecting. Hello, my dear. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
Very good. Did you have a question? Because we're just closing the call.
Oh, are you? No. Are you closing the call?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. No. I didn't have a question.
Oh, it's the time difference that's got you.
It's the time difference that's got me. Sorry. I'm very sorry.
No, don't
See you
be
later.
sorry. Don't be sorry. It's totally okay. All right, I'm going to close the call, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Record.
All right, people on Facebook. Rochelle, Jamie, Heather, Yolanda. Those are the people I can see just now. Rochelle, Tomika. Awesome. Have a super fantastic rest of the day, and I will see you later next Thursday. Bye for now.